Yeah.
All right. David signaled me that he's ready now for showing some slides. David, would you also try to put the focus on the challenges of the cloud? Maybe what makes you special in the cloud area?
Sure. Just to come back quickly on what Martin just said there. When you look at the end client who's taking up data center space, there is obviously a density issue. We've got people running at 30 kilowatts, but if you look at what people actually ask for and what they actually use, there's a lot of ego involved. So a lot of people come to the table and say, I need 10 kilowatts, I need 12 kilowatts, and when you actually look at it, they're actually using only 40% of what they're actually asking for. So that's another challenge for designing the data center, is actually aligning what people are saying with what they're actually doing. So going on to my couple of slides here now, I'll try and get through it quite quickly so we can get on for some lunch. I always seem to have the speaking slots just before lunch. Okay, so give you a couple of words on who we are. So EBRC is E-Business and Resilience Center. We're a data center operator in Luxembourg. We have 5 data centers. We have just under 20,000 square meter of data center space, which is approximately half of the Luxembourg capacity for data center. What makes us different is that we have 2 certified Tier 4 data centers. We're the only company in the world who has 2 certified centers. Soon we'll have 3. We provide managed services, anything from monitoring equipment to providing entire solutions. So that's people coming along with their application, dropping it onto an infrastructure that we design, build, and operate. We are part of the P&T group. We're owned 100% by P&T, but we're completely neutral. We're a carrier-neutral data center. And something which is very poignant to today is that we're actually trying to get away from that sticker of being a data center operator and be a service provider, so providing value on top of it. We'll come on to the certifications later on, which is something that it's very important for us, and I'm happy that it was brought up earlier. Commissioner Redding was saying earlier on that trust is the biggest problem in cloud, and I'm going to try and show you how we address that. If we look on here, you can see that we're a confirmed player in this arena. Best data center operator, best hosting provider, best risk mitigation, best everything you want to see at a European level. So that's already benchmarked European and confirmed on the local market as well to make it coherent. And that is enough propaganda for today. I wanted to share this with you. The person you see here is the ex-income tax commissioner for the Indian government. And I would really suggest you look this up. It's on YouTube. Just do a search for cloud computing India. And what this guy is saying is, if I put all my stuff into the cloud, it's all well if it's sunny when I put it into the cloud. But what happens if it starts raining? Is my data going to be dispersed everywhere? So what he said here was, if it starts raining, my personal data might be splashed all over the jungle somewhere. He's actually quite convincing in his explanation of why not to use the cloud. So I'm going to try and be convincing on why to use the cloud. And we'll come back to Visha later on. So the biggest problem that we have is actually getting to the cloud. Martin mentioned it earlier about carrier neutral, about having hundreds of telco providers. It is the biggest issue that you have, is actually getting to it. And today, typically, when we talk about the cloud, we're talking about connection through internet. So internet, for those of you who remember the old, I think it was Excel or Lotus. It was Lotus 123, wasn't it? WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. That's pretty much the standard across an internet connection. You get the capacity that's given to you at that time. There's no latency guarantees, etc. So the first thing that we can do is open up all of the carriers. So EBRC, we have 27 national and international carriers, so you have a choice of diversity of networks. But on top of that, we also have the Luxembourg Ethernet exchange, which is where all these carriers can come together and interconnect and provide level 2 connectivity across the network, which will give us then Ethernet connection from end to end through whichever route it needs to take, which gives us predictable latency, which internet won't, and it can also provide the testing for the quality of service. So first of all, best practices, it's got to have something to do with connectivity, making sure that people can get in and consume what you've got. What happens once you get into the playing field? What do people want to find? Well, they want to find everything, right? Something that I find is quite amusing is X as a service, because everybody comes up and they want to consume and they don't want to pay, right? So if we look at, what is it, 8 o'clock on here, they want it cheap, which is probably the biggest point in here. So best practices for us is obviously providing all of these services, applications as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, X as a service, but doing it in a way that people can consume it and trust the provider that they're consuming from. So if we look across here for our trusted cloud, as we've dubbed it, there's 3 points. There's the governance, risk mitigation, and also the compliance. So I'm not going to go through each one of these points here, but you can see that certification is a big point of it. Typically, if we're talking about best practices in Europe might be different to best practices in the US. Best practices being what it is, it's a benchmark. We should always try and surpass that or use it as a basis to go forward. Again, Commissioner Reding this morning was saying, you know, get rid of all of this inter-country standards and try and put one global standard for Europe, and then America might align. So for us, what's important is the security of the data. We are a company that prides itself on processing critical and sensitive data. Just an example of that, in our cloud, for example, we are doing genetic research, so biomedical sequencing. It's highly critical, it's highly confidential information. It's not the sort of thing that you want to put into a public cloud where you don't know where the resources are, you don't know where the disk is keeping it. So as far as security goes, we're aligned with the Cloud Security Alliance, which provides the 98 control objectives. So each part of our cloud is controlled and it's managed in a stable, auditable environment, something very important that came up from Martin from Telecity's speech earlier, needs to be audited. So all of those points we've put into engagements. So these are our best practices, if you like. This is our best practice charter. So the guarantee one is the quality of what you're going to get. The quality based on everything is in-house. It's all done by our people. Again, another interesting point. Our human resources are our forte. The awards that we've won to show that we are capable of delivering it and we are capable of servicing the data, but also securing it. Corporate governance is something very, very important as well. If I want to contract cloud services, I want to make sure that my data is safe, not just today, but in the future. What happens if that company goes under and I've got my critical processing on it? How do I get that information back? So the fact that we have a AAA shareholder in the Post and Telecommunications means that we have that long duration of life of the company. Security and risk management, so we spoke about that, ISO 27, ISO 20000 for the next one, which is service management, PCI DSS, which is very important for e-commerce, so everybody doing their business online, obviously want to take payments. If it's B2C, it's going to be credit card. High availability through our data centers, so making sure that the data is there, making sure that it's coherent, making sure that it's the integrity of the data is kept. Neutrality is something very important as well. My scope is specifically development of the US. If I go to the US, first of all, we have to tell them who Luxembourg is, which is always getting up early in the morning and explaining that. But also as a carrier-neutral environment, but also as a company, because the P&T obviously is owned by the state. And the US, they don't like anything that's got to do with governments, specifically their own. And specifically governments in countries they didn't even know existed. So, you know, this is all hard work. Point 7 is important, and it's my last point, is the green side of it. So it's guaranteeing that we're doing our part to make sure that the Earth is sustainable. We've installed Kyoto cooling in our latest data center, which reduces power consumption by something like 80%. Power being the biggest, cooling being the biggest power beast of the data center. So that's something we're quite proud of. Going back to my friend, just before the end, this is what I explained to you before. If you're putting your data into a cloud and it's all sunny that day, you can relate this to anything, right? If he's saying, if it's sunny, it's good, and if it's raining, will there be aberrations? Will the data be corrupted? It's the same as an engagement with a service provider. If we're all smiling and happy, when we engage a contract of service. You put your information into my cloud. What happens if our relationship degrades? Is your service going to degrade with that? Am I going to have a problem reversing your data back to you? So the weather may change, but the service is always guaranteed. And that, you'll be happy to hear, is that. Thank you.